Chapter 5. The Secret of Strength 1. Strength to step forward is the primary need of him who has chosen his path. Where is this to be found? Looking round, it is not hard to see where other men find their strength. Its source is profound conviction. Through this great moral power is brought to birth in the natural life of the man that which enables him, however frail he may be, to go on and conquer. Conquer what? Not continents, not worlds, but himself. Through that supreme victory is obtained the entrance to the whole, where all that might be conquered and obtained by effort becomes at once not his, but himself. To put on armor and go forth to war, taking the chances of death in the hurry of the fight, is an easy thing to stand still amid the jangle of the world, to preserve stillness within the turmoil of the body, to hold silence amid the thousand cries of the senses and desires, and that, stripped of all armor and without hurry or excitement, take the deadly serpent of self and kill it, is no easy thing. Yet that is what has to be done, and it can only be done in the moment of equilibrium when the enemy is disconcerted by the silence. But there is needed for this supreme moment a strength such as no hero of the battlefield needs. A great soldier must be filled with the profound convictions of the justness of his cause and the rightness of his method. The man who wars against himself and wins the battle can do it only when he knows that in that war he is doing the one thing which is worth doing, and when he knows that in doing it he is winning heaven and hell as his servitors. Yes, he stands on both. He needs no heaven where pleasure comes as a long-promised reward. He fears no hell where pain waits to punish him for his sins. For he has conquered once for all that shifting serpent in himself which turns from side to side in its constant desire of contact, in its perpetual search after pleasure and pain. Never again, the victory once really won, can he tremble or grow exultant at any thought of that which the future holds. Those burning sensations which seem to him to be the only proofs of his existence are his no longer. How, then, can he know that he lives? He knows it only by argument, and in time he does not care to argue about it. For him there is then peace, and he will find in that peace the power he has coveted. Then he will know what is that faith which can remove mountains. The secret of strength 2. Religion holds a man back from the path, prevents his stepping forward, for various very plain reasons. First, it makes the vital mistake of distinguishing between good and evil. Nature knows no such distinction, and the moral and social laws set us by our religions are as temporary, as much a thing of our own special mode and form of existence, as are the moral and social laws of the ants or the bees. We pass out of that state in which these things appear to be final, and we forget them forever. This is easily shown, because a man of broad habits of thought and of intelligence must modify his code of life when he dwells among another people. These people among whom he is an alien have their own deep-rooted religions and hereditary convictions against which he cannot offend. Unless his is an abjectly narrow and unthinking mind, he sees that their form of law and order is as good as his own. What then can he do but reconcile his conduct gradually to their rules? And then if he dwells among them many years, the sharp edge of difference is worn away, and he forgets at last where their faith ends and his commences. Yet is it for his own people to say he has done wrong, if he has injured no man and remained just? I am not attacking law and order. I do not speak of these things with rash dislike. In their place they are as vital and necessary as the code which governs the life of a beehive is to its successful conduct. What I wish to point out is that law and order in themselves are quite temporary and unsatisfactory. A man's soul passes away from its brief dwelling place. Thoughts of law and order do not accompany it. If it is strong, it is the ecstasy of true being in real life which it becomes possessed of, as all know who have watched by the dying. If the soul is weak, it faints and fades away, overcome by the first flush of the new life. Am I speaking too positively? Only those who live in the active life of the moment, who have not watched beside the dead and dying, who have not walked the battlefield and looked in the faces of men in their last agony, will say so. The strong man goes forth from his body exultant. Why? Because he is no longer held back and made to quiver by hesitation. In the strange moment of death he has had release given him, and with a sudden passion of delight he recognizes that it is release. Had he been sure of this before, he would have been a great sage, a man to rule the world, for he would have had the power to rule himself and his own body. That release from the chains of ordinary life can be obtained as easily during life as by death. It only needs a sufficiently profound conviction to enable the man to look on his body with the same emotions as he would look on the body of another man or on the bodies of 1,000 men. In contemplating a battlefield, it is impossible to realize the agony of every sufferer. Why, then, realize your own pain more keenly than another's? Mass the whole together, and look at it all from a wider standpoint than that of the individual life. That you actually feel your own physical wound is a weakness of your limitation. The man who is developed psychically feels the wound of another as keenly as his own, and does not feel his own at all if he is strong enough to will it so. Everyone who has examined at all seriously into psychic conditions knows this to be a fact, more or less marked, according to the psychic development. In many instances, the psychic is more keenly and selfishly aware of his own pain than of any other person's, but that is when the development, marked perhaps so far as it has gone, only reaches a certain point. It is the power which carries the man to the margin of that consciousness which is profound peace and vital activity. It can carry him no further. But if he has reached its margin, he is freed from the paltry dominion of his own self. That is the first great release. Look at the sufferings which come upon us from our narrow and limited experience and sympathy. We each stand quite alone, a solitary unit, a pygmy in the world. What good fortune can we expect? The great life of the world rushes by, and we are in danger each instant that it will overwhelm us or even utterly destroy us. There is no defense to be offered to it, no opposition army can be set up, because in this life every man fights his own battle against every other man, and no two can be united under the same banner. There is only one way of escape from this terrible danger which we battle against every hour. Turn round and instead of standing against the forces, join them, become one with nature, and go easily upon her path. Do not resist or resent the circumstances of life any more than the plants present the rain and the wind. Then suddenly, to your own amazement, you find you have time and strength to spare, to use in the great battle which it is inevitable every man must fight, that in himself, that which leads to his own conquest. Some might say to his own destruction. And why? Because from the hour when he first tastes the splendid reality of living, he forgets more and more his individual self. No longer does he fight for it, or pit its strength against the strength of others. No longer does he care to defend or to feed it. Yet when he is thus indifferent to its welfare, the individual self grows more stalwart and robust, like the prairie grasses and the trees of untrodden forests. It is a matter of indifference to him whether this is so or not. Only if it is so, he has a fine instrument ready to his hand, and in due proportion to the completeness of his indifference to it is the strength and beauty of his personal self. This is readily seen. A garden flower becomes a mere degenerate copy of itself. If it is simply neglected, a plant must be cultivated to the highest pitch, and benefit by the whole of the gardener's skill, or else it must be a pure savage, wild and fed only by the earth and sky. Who cares for any intermediate states? What value or strength is there in the neglected garden rose which has the canker in every bud? For diseased or dwarfed blossoms are sure to result from an arbitrary change of condition, resulting from the neglect of the man who has hitherto been the providence of the plant in its unnatural life. But there are wind-blown plains where the daisies grow tall, with moon faces such as no cultivation can produce in them. Cultivate, then, to the very utmost, forget no inch of your garden ground, no smallest plant that grows in it, make no foolish pretense, nor fond mistake in the fancy that you are ready to forget it, and so subject it to the frightful consequences of half measures. The plant that is watered today and forgotten tomorrow must dwindle or decay. The plant that looks for no help but from nature itself measures its strength at once, and either dies and is recreated or grows into a great tree whose boughs fill the sky. But make no mistake, like the religionists and some philosophers, leave no part of yourself neglected while you know it to be yourself. While the ground is the gardener's, it is his business to tend it, but some day a call may come to him from another country or from death itself, and in a moment he is no longer the gardener, his business is at an end, he has no more duty of that kind at all. Then his favorite plants suffer and die, and the delicate ones become one with the earth. But soon fierce nature claims the place for her own, and covers it with thick grass or giant weeds, or nurses some sapling in it till its branches shade the ground. Be warned, and tend your garden to the utmost, till you can pass away utterly, and let it return to nature and become the wind-blown plain where the wild flowers grow. Then, if you pass that way and look at it, whatever has happened will neither grieve nor elate you. For you will be able to say, I am the rocky ground, I am the great tree, I am the strong daisies indifferent which it is that flourishes where once your rose trees grew. But you must have learned to study the stars to some purpose before you dare to neglect your roses and omit to fill the air with their cultivated fragrance. You must know your way through the trackless air, and from thence to the pure ether you must be ready to lift the bar of the golden gate. Cultivate, I say, and neglect nothing. Only remember, all the while you tend and water, that you are impudently usurping the tasks of nature herself. Having usurped her work, you must carry it through until you have reached a point when she has no power to punish you, when you are not afraid of her, but can with a bold front return her own. She laughs in her sleeve, the mighty mother, watching you with covert, laughing eye, ready relentlessly to cast the whole of your work into the dust if you do but give her the chance, if you turn idler and grow careless. The idler is father of the madman in the sense that the child is the father of the man. Nature has put her vast hand on him and crushed the whole edifice. The gardener and his rose trees are alike broken and stricken by the great storm which her movement has created. They lie helpless till the sand is swept over them, and they are buried in a weary wilderness. From this desert spot nature herself will recreate, and will use the ashes of the man who dared to face her as indifferently as the withered leaves of his plants. His body, soul, and spirit are all alike claimed by her. The secret of strength 3. The man who is strong, who has resolved to find the unknown path, takes with the utmost care every step. He utters no idle word, he does no unconsidered action, he neglects no duty or office however homely or however difficult. But while his eyes and hands and feet are thus fulfilling their tasks, new eyes and hands and feet are being born within him. For his passionate and unceasing desire is to go that way on which the subtile organs only can guide him. The physical world he has learned, and knows how to use gradually as power is passing on, and he recognizes the psychic world. But he has to learn this world and know how to use it, and he dare not lose hold of the life he is familiar with till he has taken hold of that with which he is unfamiliar. When he has acquired such power with his psychic organs as the infant has with its physical organs when it first opens its lungs, then is the hour for the great adventure. How little is needed, yet how much that is. The man does but need the psychic body to be formed in all parts, as is an infant's. He does but need the profound and unshakable conviction which impels the infant that the new life is desirable. Once those conditions gained, and he may let himself live in the new atmosphere and look up to the new sun. But then he must remember to check his new experience by the old. He is breathing still, though differently he draws air into his lungs and takes life from the sun. He has been born into the psychic world and depends now on the psychic air and light. His goal is not here. This is but a subtile repetition of physical life. He has to pass through it according to similar laws. He must study, learn, grow, and conquer, never forgetting the while that his goal is that place where there is no air nor any sun or moon. Do not imagine that in this line of progress the man himself is being moved or changing his place. Not so. The truest illustration of the process is that of cutting through layers of crust or skin. The man, having learned his lesson fully, casts off the physical life. Having learned his lesson fully, casts off the psychic life. Having learned his lesson fully, casts off the contemplative life, or life of adoration. All are cast aside at last, and he enters the great temple where any memory of self or sensation is left outside as the shoes are cast from the feet of the worshipper. That temple is the place of his own pure divinity, the central flame which, however obscured, has animated him through all these struggles, and having found this sublime home he is sure as the heavens themselves. He remains still, filled with all knowledge and power. The outer man, the adoring, the acting, the living personification, goes its own way hand in hand with nature, and shows all the superb strength of the savage growth of the earth, lit by that instinct which contains knowledge. For in the inmost sanctuary, in the actual temple, the man has found the subtile essence of nature herself. No longer can there be any difference between them or any half measures. And now comes the hour of action and power. In that inmost sanctuary all is to be found God and his creatures, the fiends who prey on them, those among men who have been loved, those who have been hated. Difference between them exists no longer. Then the soul of man laughs in its strength and fearlessness, and goes forth into the world in which its actions are needed, and causes these actions to take place without apprehension, alarm, fear, regret, or joy. This state is possible to man while yet he lives in the physical, for men have attained it while living. It alone can make actions in the physical divine and true. Life among objects of sense must forever be an outer shape to the sublime soul. It can only become powerful life, the life of accomplishment, when it is animated by the crowned and indifferent God that sits in the sanctuary. The obtaining of this condition is so supremely desirable because from the moment it is entered there is no more trouble, no more anxiety, no more doubt or hesitation. As a great artist paints his picture fearlessly and never committing any error which causes him regret, so the man who has formed his inner self deals with his life. But that is when the condition is entered. That which we who look towards the mountains hunger to know is the mode of entrance and the way to the gate. The gate is that gate of gold barred by a heavy bar of iron. The way to the threshold of it turns a man giddy and sick. It seems no path. It seems to end perpetually. Its way lies along hideous precipices. It loses itself in deep waters. Once crossed and the way found, it appears wonderful that the difficulty should have looked so great. For the path where it disappears does but turn abruptly. Its line upon the precipice edge is wide enough for the feet, and across the deep waters that look so treacherous there is always a ford and a ferry. So it happens in all profound experiences of human nature. When the first grief tears the heart asunder, it seems that the path is ended and a blank darkness taken the place of the sky. And yet by groping the soul passes on, and that difficult and seemingly hopeless turn in the road is past. So with many another form or human torture, sometimes throughout a long period or a whole lifetime, the path of existence is perpetually checked by what seem like insurmountable obstacles. Grief, pain, suffering, the loss of all that is beloved or valued, rise up before the terrified soul and check it at every turn. Who places those obstacles there? The reason shrinks at the childish dramatic picture which the religionists place before it, God permitting the devil to torment his creatures for their ultimate good. When will that ultimate good be attained? The idea involved in this picture supposes an end, a goal. There is none. We can any one of us safely assent to that, for as far as human observation, reason, thought, intellect, or instinct can reach towards grasping the mystery of life. All data obtained show that the path is endless, and that eternity cannot be blinked and converted by the idling soul into 1,000,000 years. In man, taken individually or as a whole, there clearly exists a double constitution. I am speaking roughly now, being well aware that the various schools of philosophy cut him up and subdivide him according to their several theories. What I mean is this, that two great tides of emotion sweep through his nature, two great forces guide his life, the one makes him an animal, and the other makes him a god. No brute of the earth is so brutal as the man who subjects his godly power to his animal power. This is a matter of course because the whole force of the double nature is then used in one direction. The animal pure and simple obeys his instincts only and desires no more than to gratify his love of pleasure. He pays but little regard to the existence of other beings except in so far as they offer him pleasure or pain. He knows nothing of the abstract love of cruelty or of any of those vicious tendencies of the human being which have in themselves their own gratification. Thus the man who becomes a beast has 1,000,000 times the grasp of life over the natural beast, and that which in the pure animal is sufficiently innocent enjoyment, uninterrupted by an arbitrary moral standard, becomes in him vice, because it is gratified on principle. Moreover, he turns all the divine powers of his being into this channel, and degrades his soul by making it the slave of his senses. The god, deformed and disguised, waits on the animal and feeds it. Consider then whether it is not possible to change the situation. The man himself is king of the country in which this strange spectacle is seen. He allows the beast to usurp the place of the god because for the moment the beast pleases his capricious royal fancy the most. This cannot last always. Why let it last any longer? So long as the animal rules, there will be the keenest sufferings in consequence of change, of the vibration between pleasure and pain, of the desire for prolonged and pleasant physical life. And the god in his capacity of servant adds 1,000-fold to all this, by making physical life so much more filled with keenness of pleasure, rare, voluptuous, aesthetic pleasure, and by intensity of pain so passionate that one knows not where it ends and where pleasure commences. So long as the god serves, so long the life of the animal will be enriched and increasingly valuable. But let the king resolve to change the face of his court and forcibly evict the animal from the chair of state, restoring the god to the place of divinity. Ah, the profound peace that falls upon the palace. All is indeed changed. No longer is there the fever of personal longings or desires. No longer is there any rebellion or distress. No longer any hunger for pleasure or dread of pain. It is like a great calm descending on a stormy ocean. It is like the soft rain of summer falling on parched ground. It is like the deep pool found amidst the weary, thirsty labyrinths of the unfriendly forest. But there is much more than this. Not only is man more than an animal because there is the god in him, but he is more than a god because there is the animal in him. Once force the animal into his rightful place, that of the inferior, and you find yourself in possession of a great force hitherto unsuspected and unknown. The god as servant adds 1,000-fold to the pleasures of the animal as servant adds 1,000-fold to the powers of the god. And it is upon the union, the right relation of these two forces in himself, that man stands as a strong king, and is enabled to raise his hand and lift the bar of the golden gate. When these forces are unfitly related, then the king is but a crowned voluptuary, without power, and whose dignity does but mock him, for the animals, undivine, at least know peace and are not torn by vice and despair. That is the whole secret. That is what makes man strong, powerful, able to grasp heaven and earth in his hands. Do not fancy it is easily done. Do not be deluded into the idea that the religious or the virtuous man does it. Not so. They do no more than fix a standard, a routine, a law by which they hold the animal in check. The god is compelled to serve him in a certain way and does so, pleasing him with the beliefs and cherished fantasies of the religious, with the lofty sense of personal pride which makes the joy of the virtuous. These special and canonized vices are things too low and base to be possible to the pure animal, whose only inspirer is nature herself, always fresh as the dawn. The god in man, degraded, is a thing unspeakable in its infamous power of production. The animal in man, elevated, is a thing unimaginable in its great powers of service and of strength. You forget, you who let your animal self live on, merely checked and held within certain bounds, that it is a great force, an integral portion of the animal life of the world you live in. With it you can sway men and influence the very world itself, more or less perceptibly according to your strength. The god, given his right place, will so inspire and guide this extraordinary creature, so educate and develop it, so force it into action and recognition of its kind, that it will make you tremble when you recognize the power that has awakened within you. The animal in yourself will then be a king among the animals of the world. This is the secret of the old world magicians who made nature serve them and work miracles every day for their convenience. This is the secret of the coming race which Lord Lytton foreshadowed for us. But this power can only be attained by giving the god the sovereignty. Make your animal ruler over yourself, and he will never rule others. Epilogue. Secreted and hidden in the heart of the world, and in the heart of man is the light which can illumine all life, the future and the past. Shall we not search for it? Surely some must do so, and then perhaps those will add what is needed to this poor fragment of thought.